my she was asking me whether I've had some spiritual experience in the last 42 years, and I mentioned, yeah, like every moment's supposed to be a spiritual experience. Like what makes something spiritual, what makes something material really depends on our intention, on how we perceive things. So life can get loud, yes, and not just in terms of volume, but in terms of just the amount of distractions are horrendous. Have you noticed how loud things can get at times? Mm. And even if it seems to be quiet outside, like right now, you have your internal processing that is constantly going on, and that hardly stops. In fact, even when you dream, there's a lot of imagery, there's a lot of processing taking place. That's why you need deep sleep. You can actually get into that state of trance, that flow state, where you can actually rejuvenate and regain energy. Because if you only have shallow sleep, whereas most of the dreaming taking place, you'll never actually come to rest. Did you ever lie down and you felt less rested when you got up than before? Has this ever happened to you? Or is it just me?
No.
Okay, good group. I feel better already. No, I come here to see my old friend Nard, and so I have Nardi. It's their 11th anniversary, so round of applause. And yeah, it's always a mixed feeling to come here, because so much opportunity and so much potential, yet so much distraction and so much waste, so much noise. So how to navigate? I asked one of my main teachers how to go about this, and he mentioned that circle of concern, circle of influence. Yes, there's many things that concern me, but I don't really have much influence over them. So I was asking him about a few situations and things, and I asked him, what do you think about it? And he said, you're gonna like and not like my answer. I said, I'm not thinking about it. So, and then he shook his shoulders and laughed. Hare Krishna, thank you. And I realized that that's what I should be doing. I should be choosing my battles. Did you ever try to fix people or fix situations? Does this ever happen to you? Yeah? Did it work? Not really. Did you give up? No. We're still at it, right? We're still making lists on people and situations that need fixing. But the one that we miss out most often is our own selves. Like I met this lady in Miami. She was yelling at her phone, and I could avoid her or I could talk to her, but being a hockey player, I like confrontation, so I talked to her. And I asked her, right now, your mind is your best friend or your worst enemy? Are you mindful or mindless? And she said, I'm so angry, I could scream and yell at the whole world, but keep talking, it's working. So we had a little heart-to-heart, a little moment of connection. Because people are looking for transformation. We're looking for experience, not for transactions. Transactions you can get online. It's a very transactional world. But transformation is something that happens by experience. You have to actually be there to experience transformation. That's why clicking on stuff or just watching stuff doesn't really work so well, because it's always third person, and the processing, oh, this, oh, that, what are they experiencing? No, what are you experiencing? What am I experiencing right now? That's really what matters. So a couple of days ago, I was in Monterey, just down the road. You say down the road or up the road?
I think they'd be down.
It'd be down?
South.
Okay. And Yeah, Monterey Tech, the technological university, it's like MIT, Stanford, Georgia Tech, paying 50 grand a year to learn engineering. And it was interesting because I asked them, so you learn how to read, you learn how to write, and you learn how to count. But did they teach you how to think? I mean, you went to school. Did they teach you how to think?
What to think?
What to think, yeah, but is that thinking? A parrot can memorize stuff. Like you're talking about Utah, in Spanish Fork, they get a nice temple and a restaurant, and there's some parrots there. And whenever you walk in the door, they go, Prabhu! 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 So you can teach a parrot or many animals, they can learn and imitate. But thinking actually means questioning. Questioning. Animal doesn't have the ability to question. You can do the banana stick routine. An animal won't get it. But as humans, we can ask why. What are you trying to do here? What are you trying to achieve? Like, what am I trying to do here? I'm trying to build connection. Because if you ever give a presentation, you have to create what's called one mind. You have to actually get people to focus. Because otherwise, they'll just listen to their internal jukebox. Have you ever had jukebox? Or is this before most of your times? Welcome. That, the jukebox is always playing. There's always something on because there's a long list of things that have to be played. But we're never really present. So, have you ever been distracted? Anyone? Have you ever not been distracted? Those moments are rare, right? They're memorable. So, spiritual practice really means to connect, to be present in the moment. And that doesn't mean there won't be any other things happening at the same time. So, to be present means that I chose to be here now, in this moment. And yes, I could lament about the past, I could dream about the future, but I chose to be present now, here. It's a conscious choice. And of course, the mind likes to go to the past and lament. And what happens when we lament? We're normally looking for victims, right? I mean, I'm the victim, and then there is some perpetrators, and then the blame game starts. Have you ever blamed people? Yeah? No, they don't do this here in Texas, right? It's not something you do. So, but there's no real advancement in that. So, or we dream about the future, oh, it's going to be like this, it's going to be like that, great expectations. You be to a place, it was really great the first time. When you went the second time, why? You had expectation. You already had a clear set of what you wanted to get out of the situation, and you didn't get what you wanted because it never is the same. And then there was some sense of disappointment. So these impressions, they're coming in. The Bhagavad Gita in the 5th chapter, in the 23rd verse, Krishna says that if I can control desire and anger, then I will be a happy human. Would you like to be a happy human? We went looking for a few things yesterday, and we saw a lot of well-fed and well-bred and well-dressed and well-educated people. But there was still quite there's a tension. Even though there is plenty for everybody, there's a tension. And I'm not just talking about political, economical, social tension, or the border or whatever, but I'm talking an internal tension. Are you feeling that tension? That what is my purpose? Like, am I going to achieve my objective? Or am I going to get closer to my real self? Or am I going to lose myself more and more and just get caught up in side battles and other stuff that's really not that relevant for my own purpose? So to think means to ask the hard questions, who am I? Why am I here? And how can I get a little more authentic? That's what spiritual life is meant to be all about. So the other stimulations, they're still there, but you can acknowledge them and you can let them go. So you acknowledge them and you let them go. Like we were chanting just a few moments ago here for a good while. And have you noticed how every now and then some thought comes up in your mind? Then you can either dwell on it or you can just acknowledge it and let it go. So you learn that art of, okay, I've seen you're there, okay, I respect you, and now I'll let you go. So try that. And ultimately it's about developing our taste. And that comes from association. How long have you been photography?
Since college.
It's been a while,
20.
right? It's been a while, yeah. So practice, it takes practice. It was so funny at Monterey Tech, after the talk, one student, she walked up to me and said that book here, the Bhagavad Gita, have you read that book? The whole book? And yeah, I know, it seems like mighty, like 800 pages, 700 verses. And I do a lot of work with students, and I go to universities, and I hear this question quite often, and people say, wow, there's a lot of words in there. And I say, yeah, it's called education, Are you a scroller or are you a reader? And it may seem like you ask people, when's the last time you read a book? A book, a real book. Not a pamphlet, not an article, not an abstract, but a book. And a lot of people are, when was that? What was the last book that I read? So, but with practice, it's possible. It's possible. So for instance, here, this place is a little spiritual oasis, and we can get together and discuss topics that actually help us align ourselves, with our own purpose. Because if you're not aligned, then you get bent out of shape real fast. And then we can have some foundational attitude, some skills that will actually help us to move in the world with more awareness, with more presence, with more meaning. Have you noticed that when you're on a mission, that you have a different drive than when you're just kind of like, I'm just gonna, whatever, we'll see what comes, right? But if you're on a mission, you got purpose, you're driven, you got goals, you have things that you would like to achieve. So of course in spiritual life, what's there to achieve? Self-realization. It means getting real, it means peeling the onion and crying a little bit. Did you ever peel onions? Yeah?
Yes.
Did you cry?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Even just cutting it, just being near it. Just cutting it, peeling it, and being near it.
Yeah, right? And then you made a stupid mistake of touching your eyes. That makes it worse, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It burns.
It's called life. So that's why Krishna says in the Gita, in that verse that I was mentioning, if I can somehow deal with desire, there's so many desires. If a person says, I have no desire, it means you're dead. As long as you're alive, you got desires. Because we're conscious and we're looking for pleasure, we're looking for happiness, we're looking for love, we're looking for experience. And that's a desire. I went to the UK, which I usually do once a decade for nostalgic reasons. Went to see an old friend, and the first opening statement that he made was, I have no ambition, I have no desire. He's an elderly person, and then the next 4 hours he spent telling me all his plans. All the things that he still needed to do, people he needed to fix, situations he needed to solve. And I was tempted, but I knew better, and I just appreciated him. because that's what most people can relate to. Most people don't like to be challenged. They don't like to be fixed. They like to be appreciated. Would you like to be converted? We can do this right before lunch. No, I don't think so. I like to be inspired. I like to be, appreciated. But the other part, we'll talk about that after lunch. We'll see how good the lunch was. Then we'll talk about the other stuff, So, and it's amazing to see, because the students had to acknowledge that we never really delved into the foundational questions of, who am I and why am I here? Because sociologists have found out that you can't really, after 150,000 a year, it's all meaningless. Like, there is no point in more volume, because it won't increase the quality of your life. You can't eat more, sleep more, drive more, or more anything. And for the other stuff that you can't buy with money, that's available right here and right now. You don't have to be somebody, you can just be. As an opening question to get them thinking a little bit, I asked them, who is more in trouble? The people who want to prove to the world that they're the best, or those who know that they're the best? Now, you don't have to answer. We're not going to vote on this, but you can just chew on this. Who is more in trouble? Who is more in illusion? The ones who want to prove to the world that they're the best, or the ones who know that they're the best? So there's a lot of people in the South who are trying to get north, and there's a lot of people in the North who are trying to get to the South. There's a lot of white people who want to be tan, and there's a lot of tan people who want to be white. And it's kind of confusing, right? Like, horrendous traffic jams. I just spent 4.5 years in the Bay Area, based out of San Francisco, and it's horrendous. It's like the great LA parking lot. And why don't the people from San Jose call up the people in San Francisco and say, why don't you do my job there and I do your job here, and we just stay home and we're all just be a little more peaceful and we burn less gas and we have a life. But no, everybody has to jump into the car and hit rush hour traffic to go somewhere. Why is that a requirement? But we have come to accept a lot of things as the new normal, as the new norm. Like, why are you calling me? Did somebody die? Like, just send me a text. And I'm from before the web, like, people used to talk to each other. They used to, have a life. Just walk over to your friend's place and knock on his shack or on his shed, and yell, hey, Nard, what's up? Feed me, I'm hungry. And now it's gotten, even though, and I was walking around the university, we had about half an hour or a little more before the program, and I saw a lot of students. It was really nicely laid out. I mean, good landscaping, good architecture. And they're sitting there in different places, and they have their laptop and have their iPad and they have their phone, and they got the water bottle, everything is there. And even though we have so many tools of so much technology, there's less connection, there's less communication. Have you noticed how amazing it is? On how many platforms do you have to be to feel connection? So as a first, this was just the warm-up, the intro. Renegotiate my relationship with technology. How did we ever get so addicted? Everyone's an addict. The question is just, what am I addicted to? Where do you get your dopamine from? No, it's just... I just happened to be looking at you.
Tell us.
Tell us, right now. How many hours? And how much money do you have to make in order to be living the life? How bad do you have to get before you can do the good work? Or could we do this in a different way? Is it possible? So, flight mode, and just reoccupy my own mental and sacred space is on the top of the priority list. Because if I'm not really there, and I'm not, as they say in California, feeling the love, then how much can I be of good to anybody if I'm not good to myself, if I'm not true to myself? And that means having a life, having a practice, a spiritual practice. So what is practice? Practice is what happens when no one's watching. What are you doing when no one's watching you? That's your practice. I ask students, okay, so are you are you this, or are you that, or are you the other thing? And most people will tell you, what they study, where they're from, even their belief system. They may show you a little symbol, take out a star or a cross or something. And then you say, no, that's something you bought for a couple of bucks at the store or the mall. But what is your practice? So practice is what actually defines who we are. So daily, go into your sacred space, your heart, and practice. So that's why we're chanting. We're chanting these mantras. They're prayers for grace, for patience, for compassion, for being an instrument of change, and aligning ourselves with the source and with our higher purpose. So it's not optional, it's a requirement because otherwise the lines get blurred and I start to take on traits that I'm not really proud about. I have to be really careful. I'm half Italian, a quarter Swiss, and a quarter German, but I grew up in Switzerland. But since I mostly learned from my first teachers at the boarding school, many of them were Americans, and then when I became a monk, most of my teachers were from either Brooklyn, Chicago, or San Francisco. And so then you go into places where people are a little bit more connected to nature, like Central America. You get out into the countryside and you realize things move a lot slower. And people don't dig sarcasm or any of that kind of complicated stuff. So then it forces you to be more present, to be more real, to be more simple. And it's a good thing. That's why it's good to travel sometimes. Because if you're at home, you get what you want. But if you're on the road, you get what you get. And that's what you have. And you got to just do with it. So it's a good experience. It's a good experience. So have a spiritual practice, a daily spiritual practice, where instead of checking your messages in bed and getting into fixing and fighting and arguing and blaming mode, invest into yourself, into your spiritual practice. How about that? Right now, we don't have all the money or all the things in the world, but we have the most precious item, which is consciousness. It's attention. Where do I place my attention? And what is my intent? Why am I doing that? Basically, you get out of it what you put in. So, to become more aware, to become more conscious in our relationships. Like talking of relationships, always give more than you take. Don't think that, somebody owes me something, and have that entitlement mentality of like, hey, where's my sugar? Give me. Because then it becomes very limiting. Do you like to eat? Anybody here? Yeah? What's your favorite food?
Scrambled eggs.
Okay, well, how much can you eat, you know? There's a limit to that, right?
Yeah.
But then if you ask yourself, how much can I distribute? Unlimited, right? So our capacity to serve is practically unlimited. Our capacity to enjoy and to control is very limited, very limited. Just like last time I flew Mumbai, Heathrow, Dallas, Fort Worth, down to Santiago de Chile. It's a 2-day trip, 3 long ones, right in a row. And the station manager in Mumbai said, Hare Krishna, I worked at the Govinda's restaurant. I know Gopal Krishna Maharaj. What can I do for you? And I said, well, you know, you do what you do best. Make people happy. So he gave me 3 seats in a row, which is practically first class in economy, you know, better than that. And this year I flew the same, and I was looking, where's my friend, right? Where's my buddy? Where's the guy who can hook me up? And he wasn't there. And guess what? I got the worst seat on the plane, right before the toilet, non-reclining. Yeah, for 2 days. And initially my mind went, I don't like this, this is not nice. But then I thought about it a little deeper, and I realized that, thank you, Krishna, for showing me my entitlement mentality, because I had an expectation that was unrealistic. Now, that's something you can write down on your mental notice board, or you take a little screenshot. If you want to get utterly miserable, have unrealistic expectations towards others or towards yourself. That's the fastest way to get miserable, like instantly. And I'm sure you've had your experience with that scenario, but still we fall into that trap, right? That we go into a relationship or into an activity, and we have a very set kind of clear idea of how this is going to play out. Well, guess what? There is plan B, there's plan C, there's plan D. Stuff may go sideways, stuff may go south. The first Hare Krishna program I attended, I was still going to school. I hadn't yet successfully dropped out of 9th grade. I was still trying to keep things going. But I already got to wear the robes, and we drove out to a community center, and we were armed to our teeth with books and instruments and prasadam, you know, offered vegetarian food. And guess how many people showed up? 1? Any wild guesses?
0.
0? Well, we got pessimists, we got realists. Do we have any optimists here?
300.
300. Okay, no, nobody showed up. It was miscommunication about scheduling, you know? Do you ever show up with your camera and you realize wrong place, wrong time? Like I asked those kids at Georgia Tech, at Monterey Tech, have you ever heard of Charlie Chaplin? And only about a third had heard of him. And I'm like, half your life is wasted. Like as your homework, you have to watch Modern Times from Charlie Chaplin. Have you heard of Charlie Chaplin? He's one of the most famous comedians of all times. It was before they had sound. It was actually silent movies, black and white, with subtitles. So they had to be really good in acting to communicate the message. Imagine I would give this class without sound. How would I do that? I just said the mantra in sign language. You know, you have to really become innovative. You have to become very expressive. You have to really be there with your emotions. So Charlie Chaplin was asked, what is the secret to your success? And he said, 50% of your success is showing up at the right place at the right time.
The right place at the right time.
Yeah, which is a good start, right? Not doing someone else's homework, not barking up the wrong tree, not choosing the wrong battle, but actually doing your stuff that you're supposed to do right now. And then the other 50%, enthusiasm. Entheos. I know Latin is not high on the list, but it means divinely inspired or empowered or possessed by God or by divinity. Sounds pretty nice, right? People call it flow state or unconscious competence, to be totally in the zone. You don't have to think, you don't have to plan, you don't have to nothing. You just live in it. How does that sound? Sounds okay? Huh? Sounds something to aspire for? Would you like to live life like that? That's like living life to the fullest. You don't have to think, you don't have to plan, you're just there. So your spiritual practice will inspire you and empower you to be more in that state. And it's a state of service. It's not a state of, I can control this or I can squeeze something out of this. The worst thing you can do is, that's why we're not doing photo shoot during the program, is taking out a camera or a phone, And I don't know if you've ever tried this. Okay, this is me looking very spiritual, with the nice garland. And this is me looking.
We didn't have the garland. We didn't have the garland.
Yeah, that's not good a shot. No. And have you noticed that as soon as the phone comes out, people get either very loud or very quiet, or they go weird, they go different, or it's become such a norm, right? Oh, let me take a picture of that. And the more you do that, and the more you talk about something, have you noticed how the experience actually lessens and lessens and lessens till all of a sudden you're in minus? You've talked about something that initially was okay, but you talked so much about it that it was not okay anymore. It was actually disgusting. It actually became something else. So to act in a mood of detachment and in a mood of service, understanding that I'm not here to plagiarize or to patronize or to take credit for something that I didn't really do, but I'm here for service. So if you want to be part of the spiritual experience, let us ask every day, how can I be of service? These are the two main questions. What's the lesson? No matter what goes wrong, what's the lesson? Not whose fault is it, or who can I blame, or how can I avoid? No, what's the lesson here? And number two, how can I be of service? And if we have that attitude, no matter what life throws at you, it will actually give you more momentum. It will give you more energy. You will actually excel by that. And you got to feed your mind spiritual information. Feel free to unsubscribe. I'm not saying, throw your phone in the bathtub. I'm saying renegotiate our relationship with technology, not be a slave to technology, but to use it wisely when it's required, and otherwise feel free to unplug. So how you do that, it's up to you. I think there is a saturation point. There is a point where you say, nada más, I'm not going down that road any further. Whenever that point comes, feel free to let go and to unplug and to move on. And you will see, you're still alive, right? Like right now, you haven't checked messages, you haven't, done any of the other stuff, and you're still breathing, right? You're still okay. And I did retreats in San Francisco. We went out to Muir Woods, the redwood forest. And the great thing about Muir Woods is, besides the trees and the oxygen, no cell phone reception. People get out of the car, they go like, and they keep looking for the signal. I say, no signal, leave it in the car, And if you want pictures, there's better pictures on the web than the pictures you're gonna take. So just leave the phone in the car and just be with the trees, and have a moment of conscious presence. It's a gift. The kids don't want more money, more stuff, they want conscious attention. They want someone who's actually there, who's actually willing to engage and hear them out. That's what people want. The rest, you can order it online. But it's never that great. It's never that great. Questions, comments, or reflections? Yeah, just the last point. Feeding the mind spiritual information, not subscribing to more noise, more propaganda, more gaudy stuff that will just, there's just a lot of distorting frequencies out there that can get quite abrasive. Have you noticed how it's gotten pretty loud and pretty crazy, pretty polarizing? I know you don't check the news and you're probably not on social media, and I congratulate you. But every now and then we peek in to these things, just, we can call it work or research. Have you ever done research? And you start with Wikipedia, right? And you jump down the rabbit hole, and a couple hours later you go like, where did we start? How did this whole thing start? What was my idea of, getting online? So it helps to retrack our steps and see what is beneficial. So we spoke about the Bhagavad Gita, the 5th chapter, text 23, where Krishna says, if I can control desire and anger, I can be a happy human. Now, anger, what's the connection between desire and anger? A lot of times I don't get what I want, and it's easy to get angry. You can do it in a mild way by just being disappointed or being, discouraged, or you get loud about it. Have you noticed how a lot of angry people are trying to ruin their own lives and the lives of others? It's quite shocking. Where did that all come from? Uncontrolled desires. Uncontrolled desires. And to realize I'm a soul, I'm a spiritual being. I'm wise, I'm blissful, I'm actually eternal. Krishna says in the Gita, in the same book, that you're actually amazing. Did you know that you're amazing? I mean, theoretically, I know we all have that idea, but we're not really clear. If somebody says, can you give me some substantial proof of, we're part of divinity. We're children of eternity. We're not meant to be crawling, like barely moving. On the base level of motivations, you have fear. Okay, eat this, do this, take this vaccine, get this thing, otherwise you're gonna die. Have you ever heard that before? Yeah? Okay, let's try not to do that, and let's see if we're still living. I'm still living. I'm still here. The next level up is the carrot. Okay, you want a little better car, a little bigger house, a little better neighborhood or school? Okay, this is what you're going to do, my friend. This is what I'm going to do for you, okay? You work a little harder. Like, what about extra time? What about double shifts? Why not work 24/7, Had a friend, still have him. He was a paramedic for the San Francisco Fire Department for 21 years on the ambulance, 911. After a few months, you've seen every possible scenario that you can see. And he said sometimes there's just not enough staff, so they have to pull 2 shifts, 2 shifts of 12 hours. It's 24 hours flat out being on call. So how do you cope? How do you deal with that? You have to be really grounded in your spiritual practice, and you have to have a source of inspiration that's beyond fear, beyond incentive, because you can't do that just for money. And even the next level up, which is duty. Fear is ignorance, incentive is passion, duty is goodness. Okay, this is my nature, this is what I'm supposed to do, it's the right thing to do, and I do it as a service. That's goodness. But being good is not good enough. Why is being a good girl or a good boy not good enough? Anybody? Sometimes you do everything right, but you still feel terrible. Has this ever happened to you? You've done your homework, you've done everything, you sorted out your crib, it's all clean, it's all fine, you've done things right, but you're not feeling the love. Why? Any idea? Where does that come from?
Because you're just doing it to please someone else.
Internal.
Because unless I actually connect to my real being, to my real purpose, then just doing things right is not hitting the spot. It's not really doing it. I'm just going through the motion and fulfilling all my obligations and all the expectations, but I'm not really getting closer to my real, I start thinking in Spanish, which is good in one way, but not so good in other ways. Propósito, to my real purpose of why am I here? What's the purpose of my existence? And there you have to go a step higher, which means transcendence. What's actually my calling? La raison d'être, la raison de ser. What's the reason for me to be on this planet? There's a lot of people who are angry and frustrated because they feel useless. They feel I'm not needed. The world can go on well without me. And then you have depression, aggression, suicide, mental health issues, big social, shifts where friends, family, and society becomes kind of, something abstract, not something real. So these are a few thoughts on the topic. I thought you have maybe some questions or some comments or reflections on the topic. So please, every day, invest into yourself, in your spiritual practice, and feed your mind and your intelligence spiritual information, not propaganda, not just more noise or more volume. Yeah, there's a lot of data out there, but little wisdom. Because unless I can contextualize information, it's totally useless. Yeah, you can ask Siri, how do I feel today? What will Siri say? I can't tell you that. When I open my phone, I'm not going to drag a computer around in my little bag. When I open the phone, then what does the web ask you? So where would you like to go today? Who do you like to be? And then the phone asks me, I try to book a flight, okay, because I have places to go. And then what does the phone ask me? Are you human? Have you ever pondered about that question? AI is asking me, are you human? That's pretty funny, right? Some coder had some good sense of humor. And then you have to click on motorcycles, and you have to click on little bridges or on traffic lights. And you go like, huh? What? What am I doing here? I want a flight ticket, I don't. So things have gotten a little complicated. MS-DOS. You heard of MS-DOS? No, you're too young for that. You want to do more service. MS stands for more service, and DOS stands for delegate, outsource, and simplify. Some things have to be delegated, some things have to be outsourced, but simplify your own life. Don't become overextended, don't become too sophisticated and too complicated, too extravagant. Focus on the essentials. The good stuff in life is simple. There's power in simplicity. Okay, any points? I know you live in the life here in San Antonio. Everything's available, everything's possible, the American dream. People ask me in South America and Central America and in Mexico, so why are you here? You're from Switzerland, why are you not there? I said, because real food and real people. And what about San Francisco? A lot of fake stuff going on. So, but nobody has a monopoly on stupidity. It's a globalized phenomenon. So we have to look into our own hearts and see, am I getting closer to my real purpose? Am I being authentic? Or am I just living someone else's life? And I told my friends there at the university, what if you're so distracted that You're never present. You always live in the past and the future. What if you actually, you may be physically somewhere, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, you're not really there. And you know that situation. When you're in a crowd, but you feel lonely. Or you can be alone somewhere and it's called solitude, and you're totally connected. You feel totally in sync with your purpose. So what if you're so distracted that you miss your own graduation? You miss your own wedding. You miss your own funeral. That'd be a bummer, right? You're not there. I mean, physically you may have been there, but you're not really there. Just kind of going through the motions. It's kind of sad, right? It's kind of sad. So we've been graced with a lot of opportunity, and there are distractions that we can see either as tragedies or as opportunities. As I have acquired bad habits, so I can also acquire good habits. It means it's possible. I know I have taken on some traits that are not so great, but that shows that I can also do reverse engineering. It is possible. Now, going after my own demons is not an easy task. Have you noticed how it's not easy to go after your own weaknesses? But investing into the positive and developing more positive attraction, good habits, that's much easier. So rather than pondering over what has possibly gone wrong in my childhood, or what about last life regression? What about how many lives you want to regress? How far back you want to go? There are 8,400,000 species. How many sessions does that take to solve all that karmic baggage? Why not just get to the solution, shortcut, and deal with the positive? What will actually make me happy? What will actually solve the issue? So I see a ton of potential here, but I do notice and I do witness the noise and the loudness. Like you walk into a store, and before it was simple, like you had one or maybe maximum 3 of each item. Now you have 20 to 50, of everything, right? And you have to study it and read it and research it till after a while you just walk out of the store like we did yesterday and you say, not buying is the easiest decision, the easiest choice you can make, till you really need something. And then you're less fussy about it, right? Then you're less fussy about it because there's a real need. So the soul has a need. We want to be loved and we want to show our love. But unless we get the bigger picture, unless we get the context that who I am and what am I part of, unless I get that understanding, I will always be misappropriated. I'll project my love on things. I start to love things instead of and use people to get more things. I should love people, right? And use things to serve others. But I'm using people to get more things. Something went wrong somewhere, seriously wrong. And so I have to catch myself, because it's easy to get into transactional mode. And it's not sufficient to blame it on capitalism or to blame it on, whoever we'd like to blame it on. We got to take responsibility. And that means every moment, every day, especially in the early morning before the sun rises, have some good spiritual practice, which will help me to reevaluate my goals, my attitudes, my motivation. And then, yes, let the world throw whatever it wants to throw at me, and I will try to use that as an opportunity, and I won't fall into tragedy mode. Thank you for your kind attention. If there's anything that you would like to ask or comment on or reflect, I know you've been pretty attentive, and Some of this may be new grounds, or some of this is maybe same old, same old. We're all on a journey here, and we're here to experience, to share, and to serve. And I think that's always available, right? You don't have to have a membership card, or that's always available. That opportunity always exists, and I'm grateful for that. And that's why I'm grateful to my friends here to keep the oasis open and to keep the transcendental sound vibration going. Chanting helps because sound is powerful. Like, I always wonder, why people can't switch off their notifications, or why, if a phone starts ringing, all of a sudden a grown-up person jumps up and runs out of the room, and I'm like, what happened? It's just,
Classical
Conditioning.
classical conditioning, right? And I get it, yeah. If you're a brain surgeon and you're on call, because you're the main dude in surgery at the hospital, I get it, and I will tolerate it. But if you're anything but that, I don't get it, why you have to have your notifications on. And some people go so far that every letter that they press, it makes a sound. Have you noticed those ones? And it's like, but then I'm like, okay, this is an opportunity. Let's see how I'm gonna deal with this. So it's not productive to tell people what they don't want to hear, but it's more productive to look, okay, what's the lesson? Why am I intolerant, impatient, and easily annoyed, easily aggravated? So please keep chanting. You can chant by yourself, you can chant while you drive, but it's also very powerful to chant on beads, because beads help you. Like, you have dental floss and you have mental floss. So beads are like mental floss. All that noise, all the chatter and all the loudness, it really calms down when you start chanting japa. Krishna says in the Gita, of all austerities, I am japa. So spend time with your beads. And this Mahamantra, this great mantra, is a good way how to connect. Hare is the feminine part of divinity. Krishna, the masculine part. Together is the all attractive, all beautiful, all loving, supreme. And Rama is the source of all beauty, all love, and all strength. It's a simple prayer for showing gratitude, for showing appreciation, showing love, and calling for grace. It can also mean I need help. It can also mean I'm lost. So it's got many purposes. Try it out. We have tried a few things. Not everything worked, right? Well, we tried a few things. So why not try the mantra? So we're gonna chant a little more?
Yeah, we can do a little bit more chanting.
Yeah. And keep chanting. Get your own copy of the Gita, 700 verses. You read 1 or 2 a day. In a year or two, you read this book. It's not that hard. Or unplug from the noise, and all of a sudden you have so much more time. Did you notice? There's all of a sudden not just more time, but there's more space. There's more oxygen to actually focus and to take in valuable information. And then go out and do what you got to do in the world. But you will see that you will see things in a different perspective. You will have a different type of experience. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. All right.
On first and third Thursdays, we do Bhagavad Gita on Zoom, if anybody would like to go in. And then every morning at 8:30 a.m. we're on Zoom. We read from some of the ancient text. A couple of announcements real quick. Next Saturday we're doing I think it's going to be quite a lot of people. We're cooking for 150, but it's at the Japanese Tea Gardens from 6 to 8. I think we're gonna have a pretty large crowd, if anybody wants to join or help us cook. Or we're gonna do yoga, Reiki, kirtan, sound bath, and cooking lunch or dinner for everybody. I guess that would be dinner, right? We're expecting a few hundred, we'll see what happens. And then what else?
Yeah, we're gonna need some help for that.
Okay, if anybody's interested. And I think that'll be it.
We have successfully lost